All right, thanks for joining the Collector Car Podcast again. This is all about the Hershey sale, RM Sotheby's Hershey sale, and I wanted another car specialist to join me. So, welcome, Zach. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing good. You have been on this
Good.
podcast before, and I'm thrilled that you agreed to be on it again. So, thanks for putting up with me.
Absolutely. We'll keep it short.
Well, no, we won't. We'll keep it long. So I wanted you on because you're an expert. We have Hershey coming up. There's some fun pre-war cars. And I just wanted your input on what you like about certain cars, just to kind of give our listeners an overview of some of the offerings coming to Hershey. So you up for that?
I am. I'm ready.
All right. You sound very excited too.
I am. It's one of my favorite sales of the year.
Oh, good. Well, why is that?
Yeah. It's genuine. Like everybody that collects cars is a genuine car person, but it's like these cars are a different breed in their own. They're cars you have to see in person or have somebody look at in person for you to like know that it's a good car. And when somebody comes to look at a car at Hershey, one of the best things is there's never a paint meter in sight. And because I don't own a paint meter, I've refused to buy one. And so you don't like people are coming to see like, is this a good car? Like, is it a driver car? Is it a show car? Does it start and run? Like, all right, cool. Like, I'm good with the car. Like, I want to buy it. It's almost, I don't know if it's simpler. I think it's simpler. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's definitely simpler for a buyer and for a seller.
Maybe a little more old school, right?
Yeah, definitely old school. And like a lot, like some of these cars, people know them already. Like they know who bought it, they know who restored it, they know who owned it in 1975, and they remember the car then, and they know it's a pure car or whatever it is. Like it's not a huge guessing game with these cars by any means.
Oh, awesome. That sounds great. I know there's a lot more automobilia than we typically have at a sale, right? Isn't that kind of a fun part about it too?
Yeah, it definitely is, because you get the old memorabilia, like the leather license plates, like the old Vanderbilt, I forget, what do you call them? They're like flags, essential pennants.
Oh, yeah.
Pendants. Yeah, pendants. Yeah. So I don't know, there's a lot of old things like that that are still really collectible. They're cool things to hang in your office or your man cave or your house if your partner allows you to do that, which some do, I imagine, not mine. So there's just a little bit of something for everybody at Hershey. Plus, it's the largest gathering of like old cars like this. So it's just a fun week all around.
That's awesome. Yeah, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that I have all sorts of automobilia behind me, including a fish tank. And if you look closely, there might be a fish floating upside down. Actually, there's not. I take very good care of my fish. But Zach, over there, one thing I do want to get from my office is, because my last name's Stanley, I want a Stanley brass dash thing, whatever.
No, like the emblem off the grill.
Yeah,
like the lettering.
Yeah, if you see one, buy one for me, would you?
I'll send you a link. I know where one's at, I think.
Oh, cool.
I think there's a good chance. It's even in Ohio.
Oh, all right. Send me a link. It'll be on here next week, hopefully. Well, we're going to start with two pieces of automobilia I thought were pretty interesting. The first one is a penny farthing bicycle. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the British translation of quarter penny or quarter dime because of the size of the wheels when you compare a quarter to a penny or something like that?
I don't know that. I grew up in Kansas, which is way far away from any European people. So I don't know that. People in Kansas, believe it or not, rode these. There was actually a kid at McPherson College. He would ride a unicycle and also one of these around campus.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's the closest I got to him. So honestly, I don't have an answer for your question on that.
Well, we'll say the penny's correct because the name is penny farthing. So we'll say the other one's for a quarter, which is the dimensional size between the front. Maybe that looks like maybe a $50. Yeah, we had a guy growing up that he was a dentist when I was like 5 years old. He'd go riding by on one of these. And yeah, I don't know that I would ever try it at my advanced age, but maybe a young guy like you would.
Yeah, and I know I think they even do races with these. I don't know if it's a race or like kind of like a tour. It's up in the Northeast, but they do still ride these like as a fun thing. And I know there will be at least one guy at Hershey that's there every year that still actively rides one. He's young like me, but he still actively rides one. So maybe we'll have to get him to ride it across the block for us.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. Well, I only have one other I wanted to pick. There were a lot of really cool airplanes, model airplanes, and I just picked this one because I thought it was very cool. It's a ROCAF North American P-40 Warhawk. 5 to 10 grand is the price on this. Just really, really cool. These things must be pretty good size. Do you have any insights on, I mean, is this something that's in your wheelhouse, or you just think they're kind of cool?
I think they're cool because obviously you could hang a lot of these from your ceiling in your man cave or car collection, where a real one takes up a lot more room and also is much harder to get a hold of, I imagine. It's not easy buying old warbirds from what I understand.
Yes, I would agree with you. And this one's really cool. And I just brought it up because we have like 20 of these things, or maybe even more, a ton of them. So I have a lot of pilots in my family. So I'm going to share a few of these with my nephew, who is going to be an Air Force pilot one day. Well, let's move on to the cars. And I want to start with the big cars, just because, you know, everybody kind of wants to know what the big cars are coming to Hershey. This is a 1909 Rolls-Royce 4050 horsepower Silver Ghost. And just what you would think of from a beautiful car from the early 1900s. Do you know much about this car? Have any opinions on this car?
So these are a great, there's still an active buying group for these because there's tours that you can do with them. It's HCCCA eligible, the Horseless Carriage Club, so you can do the tours with them. I think this one might even be an old farts tour eligible car too. But this car came off a fresh restoration, so like paint's great, like chrome's great, like everything on the car, like from what I can see in photos, I'm super excited to see it in person, is just a really great car, and it's priced super attractive too. Like most of the time these come out with, like, if they're this fresh and this nice, it's like $1 million is what people want for them. And obviously we're under that, and I think it's a very attractive estimate that should garner a lot of bids in person once people see how good it is.
Yes, and I didn't mention it before, but the estimate on this one is $800 to $1 million. You're right, it is absolutely stunning as I go through it. And what a great touring car, because you could probably fit, what, 6 folks in there? 5 or 6.
And another great thing is the horsepower. You want horsepower when you do the old tours, because you could do like an HCCCA tour with a Model T, like a brass Model T. But you're not going to be like fast, or you're not going to tackle hills very well. And with this kind of car, you can keep up with the big boys. You can climb hills. You can like really give it all it has. And I think that's one of the attractions I have to pre-1915 cars is the horsepower. I don't know, maybe that's like my Kansas roots growing up around muscle cars. That's why I'm attracted to that kind of horsepower rating. But when I see like 40, 50 horsepower or more on a pre-15 car, I think it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that might sound really weird for our listeners that are used to, you know, average cars having 300 horsepower now, right? But back in the day, 40 to 50 was quite a bit, wasn't it?
That's a lot of horsepower.
Right. Right. Awesome. All right. The next one is another big hitter for this auction. It's a 1934 Auburn 12 Salon Cabriolet, estimates 450 to 550. This is a V12 car. It sounds pretty rare. What do you know about this car?
So if I remember correctly, this is one of approximately 5 that's left in existence. And this car is pure too, like original chassis, original motor, original body, which with pre-war cars isn't always a guarantee, because back in the day, like, they were used cars. And if you blew up a motor in one Auburn you had, you pulled the other one out and swap motors. And then things go separate ways. It happens with Duesenbergs and a lot of pre-war cars. So to find something like this that's pure is super difficult. And like, I think even for, so this is a Salon 12 Cabriolet. On the Salon 12 Speedsters, I think there's only 3 pure, like 100% pure ones left in existence. So like, and they even made more of the Salon 12 Speedsters than they did the Cabriolets. So this car is like super rare. It's super rare. And a 12-cylinder Auburn, they run like silk when they're dialed in. It's an absolutely phenomenal car to drive. And my favorite part of this car is the woodlight headlights.
Yes, those are really cool.
I've always been obsessed with those ever since I like started learning about Jordans, which were made in Ohio. and the Jordan Speedway Ace had wood lights on it, and I think they're super attractive. Not everybody's flavor, but I think it adds the right era to the car that it needs.
Yeah, so for those that are not watching on YouTube, where they can take a look at this picture and see what these things look like, I don't want to say they're oval, like vertical oval, but that's kind of where you got to start,
Yeah.
right? And then they kind of come to a little bit of a point, not a point, but definitely tapered towards the bottom. So it's definitely a different looking type of headlight, correct?
Yeah, and they're super hard to find. They came on a lot of different cars, and they're expensive if you want to buy a set of them these days. Like, I think I just saw a set get listed. They were okay. They were like, I think it was 8 grand, 6 or 8 grand, but I've seen them listed as much as 25 grand for a set of those headlights.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit some of the garage sales near me, see if I can
Yeah, if you see some wood lights and they're cheap, you should buy them.
Awesome. Well, before we go on to the next group of cars, because I know quite a few of these, you're the consigning specialist, and I noticed quite a few were no reserve. And I wanted your thoughts on no reserve, because I just did a no reserve episode last week or the week before where I took all 5 auction houses from Monterey. The Hammer Price folks were nice to give me the database, and I crunched the numbers, and it really seemed like in a lot of situations, no reserve performed quite a bit better than cars that had a reserve. So when you're talking to a client and you're saying, hey, you know what, I think the best strategic way to sell these cars would be to sell them at no reserve, how does that conversation go, and what are some of the points that you try to make to your clients?
The conversation, it's all based on the client. Like, if you're getting a first-time seller to a sale, it seems like a scary thing to offer something up at no reserve, and you don't know what the final selling price is going to be. Like, obviously we never know, but you don't have that layer of protection that a reserve gives you, to where if we don't meet that, or if we get close, they can change their mind and lift the reserve. But like, there's that minimum threshold that they can use as a blanket of security. So it really depends client to client. Usually clients that have sold cars at auction before understand the risk and reward of selling a car no reserve, which the risk is it could sell for under your expectations or our expectations as an auction house. That's definitely the biggest risk. So you're taking the highest bid on the car that day, regardless of where it stops. But the big reward is there's no stopping where the car could sell, like any car at auction. Like, it could go above estimate, like we saw with some of our no reserve cars at Monterey this year. They can absolutely blow by those estimates. And what a no reserve car gets you at auction is bidders. Like, everybody knows that that car is selling regardless of where the final price is. And so you have people that go there looking for a steal. You have people that are going there to buy it for whatever market price it is. If it's 50 to 60 grand, like, they're like, yeah, I agree, it's 50 to 60 grand, I'll pay 50 for it. And then you get bidders that are like, I don't care what it goes for, I just want the car. And so those bidders you bring through that process help push that car to where the final bid is going to be, and hopefully it's higher than what everybody was expecting. But you have to have that engagement, and that's where no reserve really helps. Obviously, with every car, it's not feasible to get no reserve. And that's why we price things where they should be in order to get people interacting with us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I brought that up because I just had one car last year at Hershey, and it was basically the car we're looking at right now. Yours is a 1935 Ford Model 48 Deluxe Phaeton. Mine was, I think, a 36. And I priced the car out. It was a spectacular example. I think it was 45 to 55 grand, hammered right at 50,000, right in the middle. Yep. And that was a no reserve car last year. And it seems like cars like this, which are kind of, I don't want to say a commodity, but they're ones that you see trade hands enough, you can pretty much nail it down, right?
Yeah, like 30s Fords, like, it's all really easy. Well, I say easy. It seems easy to put a price on them because it's all condition. Like, there's so many that trade hands. If it's a roadster, like a 36 Roadster, if it's a sedan, if it's a coupe, if it's a Phaeton like this, there's so many comparable examples that have sold or that are for sale. And so it really comes down to condition history of the car. Like, oh, maybe it's not like AACA winning car, so maybe it's not 50, 60 grand. Like, I think, was your car last year the one that was restored by Babinski?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, that was like, I remember that car now. Like, that car was killer. Like, People usually don't restore. People usually don't take Babinski like at 30s Ford. Like he's known for like doing the big full classics and Mercedes and everything like that for Pebble Beach. And so to find one with that kind of pedigree is absolutely amazing. And if you want the best one in the world, like that's where you're going to have to pay that price for it. But if you want another car that I just want to go to a Cars and Coffee, I just want to do ice cream during the summer or year round in Florida, like I can do, like here's an example that's only, like 30 grand, whatever it may be, or 25 grand. Like it's super appealing to a wide audience of buyers, and they're a simple car when you get down to it too. Flathead V8 with a single carburetor, it doesn't get much simpler than that.
And for some reason, I just love this car. I just love the thought of a Phaeton 4-door. You got the windows are not permanent, right? That's the Phaeton. You got to have the inserts and, just a big 4-door convertible that you can Phaeton that you can take your family, and cruise around the block. I just think that's super cool.
Oh, it is. It's very open touring minded, and to get an earlier, bigger car that's a Phaeton, you pay a big premium for it if it's a Packard or something like that. So this is an easy way into the old car world, or to add another one to your old car collection, and not for a heck of a lot of money, I don't think.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. All right, our next one's a 1937 Buick Series 80 Roadmaster Limousine by Brewster. Mm-hmm. Now, I picked this one just because it is one of your classic big pre-war cars. Yeah. I was surprised it said limousine just looking at it, but tell us about this car.
Yeah, so this one, we actually sold this car back in 2020. It was part of a large Buick collection out of Colorado, and my client bought it there at Auburn fall. And it's an attractive Buick in that they didn't make very many of the Brewster didn't make very many of these. So the coachwork on it, you'd have much more attractive fenders. And with the limousine style, there's room for plenty of people to ride in it as well. And it's a straight 8. Like it's an easy car to drive. Unless you're tall like me, then it gets a little cramped in the front because the front seat doesn't adjust backwards. But it's just like that side profile. It just has much more character, much more design than your normal Buick Roadmasters that you're going to see on the road or at another AACA event. And if I remember correctly, I think this is a CCCA full classic. So that gets you eligible for tours or shows or whatever you want to do with that. So it has a lot of possibilities that you can do with the car.
Yeah, that means a lot, right? And the value of the car is the usability of the car, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Well, next, I'm really curious to get your opinion on 1948 Lincoln Continental convertible. I'm interested because the estimate is $45,000 to $55,000 offered without reserve. And I just feel like you've got a big V12 American full classic for 50 grand. And in my mind, these have been suppressed or depressed valuation wise for 5 years now or so. Mm-hmm. Is this, do you think this is a steal? Do you think this is right on the, I mean, obviously it's right on the money, but should these be worth more? I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
I think there's room for them to be worth more. The problem is there's a lot that come to market. So, your supply and demand problem with them, like you can always get one. It's not like, oh, like I haven't seen one come to market for 2 years. Like I gotta have one. And everybody's thinking that too. Like they come up quite often because it was a mass produced car essentially. So I think that's what kind of holds it back from reaching another tier in value. Like having the V12, the 3 on the tree, like convertible, the rear mounted spare, like it's a sexy car. Like when you get down to it, and has the power to do it. You could drive this, literally you could probably drive this on a highway. I wouldn't in Florida because our highways are crazy. But you could do it elsewhere, like in Ohio or the Midwest. Like it's a car you could actually go town to town in and enjoy. And the V12 in this, I drove this one around a little bit, and it had just been rebuilt. Like it runs so smooth. And that's the beauty of these old cars. Like and all of our new cars run smooth. Like my F-150 runs smooth. Yeah, it's like a fuel injected brand new motor. But like this is a huge, like this is an old car that somebody actually took the time to dial in, to balance, to tune the carburetors and make sure everything ran like it does. And I think that's a huge feat and adds to the attractability of this car.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a beautiful car. Every time I see one trading for 50 grand, I'm like, man, that seems like a steal.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Next
is a big wing car from the 50s, 1959 DeSoto Adventure Sportsman Coupe, 45 to 55 grand. Again, another no reserve car, stunning black with the gold accents.
Yeah.
Tell us about this car. I've always loved these when I've seen them at car shows. I'm always drawn to them, the big, the fins and everything.
Oh yeah. The fin era is phenomenal. It's such a, I don't know, it's a pinnacle time in the design of American cars. Big land yachts, giant fins, like everything in the interior back in the day that you think would kill you, like if you got in a front end collision, pointy stuff everywhere. Like the swivel seats in this, like, do you really need it? No, but it was cool back in the day, made it easier to get in and out of the car. You have the push button transmission, which is, I don't know, that's back in today with even some new cars. Like back then it was an amenity, like everything had either a manual or an automatic on the column. So having a push button transmission was a luxury. In this car with your big block Chrysler powered engine, AC, like this is a luxury car from the day in the classic colors of black and gold as DeSoto's look best in. You get the big fins. Like it's a truly great car that anybody would look good in. And it has the power to get you down the road also.
And it has 6 brake lights, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Now,
styling.
Yes, styling. Yeah. Now the swivel seat that turns right as you open the door. It turns towards you, which is really, really sweet. Very, very cool.
It is. It is. I don't think you can do that with new cars. It probably goes against some like safety regulations you have on cars now.
Might eject you as you open the door to get out.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you need to do that.
Now, the next one, again, I'm really interested about. I love C1 Corvettes. I don't really fit in them that well. I'm sure you're probably the same, how tall you are.
Yeah.
But I'm always curious because the starting in the 58, we have a 58 Fuelie Corvette, 110 to 130, again, no reserve. I always like the quad headlamps, which is what this car is, a 58. 58 is known for having the extra chrome on the back. Some people like the 59 and 60s a little more because it has a little less chrome. And then I've also talked to folks that really like the 57 because that was a single headlight, the V8, the classic. Where do you fall when it comes to Corvettes first gen?
So first gen, I would have to go with 57 also. I like the sleek look of a single headlight car. Like quad headlights really aren't my thing. I don't know why, but I really like the 57. Like you still get the V8, like everything like that. I just like that simplistic look a little bit more. I'm a simple man.
See, I like the chrome and the bling and the coves and all that, so I'm probably more of a 58 guy.
Yeah.
I've appreciated the 57s a little more, but tell us about this car. Have you driven this car?
I only drove that one a little bit because I think that was at the start of our whole shoot of all these cars up there. But like the fuel injection unit had been rebuilt, so it fires right up. When those are dialed in, they're great to drive. Like you get the 4-speed with the horsepower. For me, it's not comfortable at 6'4", like how tall I am to drive it. But these cars have that American power from the V8, the reliability, the smooth shifting of the 4-speed. You can handle pretty well in it. Like it's not like today's cars or some European cars from the period, but for something that Americans made in 58, it's a phenomenal example.
Yeah, this is such a classic color combo. It's red interior with the white coves. First thing I would do is buy some new white wall tires.
Yeah, they just need some scrubbing. That's all.
Yeah, you can scrub that.
That's what bleach white's for.
That's right. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think I'm just picking the cars I wish were in my garage because as I look at this, the next car is definitely one I want in my garage. 1958 Chrysler 300D convertible. And we have I think also a 300F in this sale. 80 to 100 grand, no reserve. One of 191 examples built. The most expensive Chrysler in 1958. Black with tan interior. Tell us about this beauty.
I mean, this is a car you make a statement with, like dual quads, Hemi powered. You have the Chrysler design with the big fins. You have the convertible top. You have the bench seat. You have the push button transmission. Like this car has everything that exuded luxury from Chrysler in the late 50s, like the DeSoto did. And this is another great example, like especially being a convertible from the factory, because through time, like, I don't know, somebody rolled one, they lopped the roof off. Like there's always cars out there that aren't pure, like in any era. And this one is a good original convertible from the factory that's been restored and maintained and like drives well. It's a phenomenal car. It really is.
Yeah, this thing is absolutely gorgeous. Now, could I fit that in my garage? Do they fit
Yeah,
in standard garages nowadays?
I think if you sold your GTO, you could fit this in there.
The GTO barely fits, I must say.
Yeah, so you have to sell it. I
Oh, I got
told
to
you.
sell it.
Yeah, I've
Barely.
already told you that.
You'd be happy to take it off my hands, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would for a discount.
For a discount, sure.
Yep.
All right, next is another really cool car I'm a little bit familiar with because I have a client that
Yeah,
has 3 of these. 57
three of them.
Cadillac. Yeah, Eldorado Brome. Now, the estimate on this is 90 to 120, and this is the 4-door, like kind of, I know suicide door, but French doors
Yep.
is kind of the way it opens. They all had the stainless steel roof. Tell us about this beauty.
This is Cadillac's late 50s luxury automobile. I think my favorite part about these is the stainless roof and then the vanity kits that came with these. Obviously, the vanity kits are like super hard to get a hold of, and this one has a set that features both original things and reproduction things. I'm not sure which are real and which are reproduction. I haven't seen the car in like, I think we sold it 6 years ago. But you had like your perfume dispensers, like your mirrors, and all these cool things that were like designed towards the females that would be riding in the car or driving the car. And so Cadillac really targeted that audience with some of their things. And so these cars were luxury. I think if I remember correct, you could even have like memory seats in these. I don't know if I've seen one with electric memory seats that actually worked. And originally they came on air ride suspension, which obviously that stuff is hard to maintain today if it has an issue, and getting parts is getting more difficult. And this car's been converted over to coilovers, so you don't have to worry about that at all. You maintain the same ride height. You don't have to worry about leaving for the summer or the winter and coming back and seeing it squatting on the ground. Like it'll maintain that ride height. So that's a nice part that I like. Some people don't like it because it's not pure. But from a usability standpoint and maintenance standpoint, it's a very positive aspect to this car.
Yeah, and this one also had custom hubcaps. They're all custom to the Brome and chrome and just really beautiful and different. And this is a car I've been calling like kind of a pinnacle car. Kind of not that it's recession proof, but I think it will outpace the trends from a valuation standpoint just because it was such a special car in the day. Would you agree with that?
I would. Like anything that was special back then and not necessarily built to be as special as it is today will maintain and always have somebody that wants that car. Like they didn't build, I forget the production numbers on these. It's fairly small. Like they didn't purposely do that to like create value in the future. Like most of these people, they are like, oh, we just built a few hundred of these. And like now today we're like, oh, there's only 200 of certain cars left. Like the value's super high. Like they didn't purposely do that, but it's the benefit the cars have today is the manufacturer's limited production, maybe accidentally or on purpose back in the day, that will help maintain these cars into the future and maintain their collectability.
Yeah, this is one of 400 built for 57, just 704 for 57 and 58. And if I remember correctly, in 58, the price point was like $13,500, which was at the time, I believe, the most expensive American car ever produced for that year. And if you're watching on YouTube, I've got it paused here with the French doors open so you can see the entire expanse. It's pretty cool because the hinges are so big on this car and so much chrome. Yep. It's a really, really cool car.
Oh, like everything's shiny on this car.
See, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, everything's shiny.
All right, we got just 2 more. The next one's a 1954 Hudson Italia by Touring, $250,000 to $350,000. The first of 25 production examples built, and it's based on a Hudson. Now, I picked this one because it's such a unique styling exercise, and it totally reminds me of the dual Gias. Can you kind of talk about a little bit of both of those, how you compare the two? Because I know the dual Gias they're another 200 grand more expensive than this one.
Yep.
What are your thoughts? When to me, this is just as beautiful looking. Obviously, it's based on a Hudson, but give me your thoughts on this car and also as it relates to a dual gear.
So this car is classic American powertrain with Italian coachwork, which we saw across numerous different cars. Like, I think what would set this apart from a dual Kia is on a Chrysler platform. You have more power, more ease of driving. And if you look at like a Chrysler, like a regular Chrysler from the same area as the Ghia, they obviously demand more than a Hudson of the same area. And I think that relates to not only the production numbers, but also maybe power that you have to drive the car that could be more attractive to somebody, where a Hudson, like you have a straight A, like maybe not as much power as you would want. Like even this Italia was in California early on in its life after it was done being a show car. And the owner pulled out the original 8 and put in, I forget what other motor he put in, but he put in a motor that had more power because he was having trouble going up hills back in the day with this car. And so even back then, maybe for certain parts of the country, it wasn't as usable as people would like, maybe that you could get with a Chrysler product. And so I think that maybe long-term has an effect on the value of them. I think these are definitely more sexy, like much more curvature. I like the touring coach work. Obviously, we saw touring on Ferraris and every other kind of European car. And so I think it's definitely more sporty, not as grand and luxurious as you would see a Ghia. This is definitely more of a sport car.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very cool. And it looks like it has kind of faux 6 exhaust tips coming out of the side, but it looks like those are those for lighting, or is it just reflectors? What's on those?
There's some lighting back there for sure.
Yeah, very cool.
You'll have to look. Are you coming to Hershey? You have to take it out for a spin, Greg.
I wish I wasn't, unfortunately. I'm not making it out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like this car, the owner's dad bought it in 1980 and has a super interesting history file on it, like documentation from Hudson back in the day talking about the early release of this car, like the Italia. So much paperwork, and this one has like known history since new, which with American cars isn't always known because they were everyday cars. But this being such low production, such great history, like long-term ownership with the current family, I mean that's 43 years right now, invites a super great opportunity to pass it on to the next caretaker.
Yeah, and I just flipped through some pictures and saw the really cool bucket seats, the way they're designed. I've never seen seats like that before. And then it doesn't have a back seat. It has like a bench or, a tray table there, which is pretty cool. I did not realize that.
Yeah, they didn't have regulations then. It was fine.
What more? One of my favorite cars, 1966 Mustang Hypo Fastback.
So tell us about this one, Greg, since you're the Mustang man.
On the Mustang. So the estimate on this one is $75,000 to $90,000, no reserve, most desirable, highest performance Mustang for 1966. I have a beater 65 in the garage, which I absolutely love. I will tell you what's interesting about this car is that in 65 you could not get AC power steering or an automatic, whereas in 66 you could. But this one's nice spec. It's black. It's got the GT package with the red side stripes, red line tires, got the styled steel wheels. Really, really nice presentation. Pony interior, which is super desirable. The wood grain console. It's got the rally pack, which is an 8,000 RPM versus the standard 6,000. So really great package here. I think it's priced right on. Yep. That's my opinion. So what's your opinion, Zach?
I like the Raven Black. I think it's super sleek on this car. Like you said, the red side stripes, red line tires, styled wheels, GT package, like 4-speed, K code. Like, I don't know what more you could ask out of a Mustang fastback from 66. I mean, your next step up is going to like a Shelby, like GT350. Like, this is, it's, I don't know if it's peak. I think it's probably like the best thing that you could get now, since you're not ordering the car new. Since we don't have the luxury of doing that now, we have to buy what somebody else bought. And whoever bought this one new did a phenomenal job with picking the colors and picking a K code and a 4-speed. Like, I think you should trade your 65 in on this one, Greg.
I don't disagree with you. I don't. But then I would be scared to drive this with the black paint job. The one I have, I can take it down a gravel road without having to worry about it.
I mean, if you own it, you can take it down a gravel road. Nobody's going to stop you.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Now, one thing that's interesting, there's another Hypo, a convertible in the sale, and it's the dark ivy green, which I absolutely love. And I noticed they both say they have numbers matching K code engines, which is really rare because of the 3 production plants. I believe only one of the production plants actually put a VIN stamp on the engine block. So that is a very cool thing to have. It just adds value to the car. So
yeah, and I looked at both I looked at the fastback stamp last night. Jake got it for me since the car's in Canada, and then the 65 stamps in the history file. And they look nice, and it's amazing that they're still there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I just flipped to RM Sotheby's homepage now. That tells us that this interview is over. Is there any other cars or any other comments per the Hershey auction?
It's an auction that everybody should attend. Like, Hershey's an event you should attend once in your life. It's a big hub for where we get all this energy for our hobby at. And we have a phenomenal lineup of cars, from K-Code Mustangs to, great brass things like early 1900 cars that you could do London to Brighton with. Like, we have a 1903 example. And anything up through the early teens into the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And I think we even touched 70s this year with some low mileage Cadillacs. And so there's a little bit of everything for everyone. And every tour you could imagine, you could participate with one of these cars on CCCA, HCCCA, AACA shows. There's so much potential in the cars that are there. And it's a hands-on auction where you get to see, smell, touch, hear all these cars do what they're supposed to do. And then we even have a barbecue on Tuesday night, which is everybody's favorite event.
Nice. So it's funny you mentioned the 70s, because I did have the bicentennial Cadillac in there, because I only made one of 200. And back when I sold one at Auburn a couple years ago, of the 11 cars I had in the sale, I had more inquiries about that bicentennial Cadillac than any other car, and only one guy was a collector. All the rest, everyone else just had good memories from growing up, and they wanted to drive it. So
it's a connective car. I remember that. I thought you put way too high an estimate on that, and then I was wrong. I remember that one.
Well, thanks.
Thanks
for questioning my judgment. I appreciate that.
I questioned it, but then you proved to be right, so it's fine. And I didn't tell you till 3 years later, so it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. You'll get over it, I'm sure.
I'm already over it. All right. Thanks, Jack. Zach. I'm going to start calling you Jack now. Thanks, Zach, for joining the Car Podcast. As always, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Anytime, Greg. Great chatting with you.